It is early April 2023 and I'm in the Chiricahua Wilderness of Coronado National Forest, Arizona. The Chiricahuas are the largest sky island range in the state, those majestic mountains that rise from the relatively flat desert. I'm about to set off on a backpacking adventure here, and the biggest challenge that I'm expecting on this trip is the snow. I could see the top of the ridges and there was definitely a significant amount of snow up there. It could range from me getting up to the top and having to hike right back down because it's impassable, to perhaps there's just a few patches along the trail that I have to navigate or traverse from time to time. I'm not sure what to expect. I'm hopeful for the best, and I'm ready to hit the trail. My day started with a pleasant forest road walk, which was really just a glorified wide trail. I'm now hopping on the Mormon Ridge Trail, where I will start to climb. Straight away on Mormon Ridge is a sizable crossing of Turkey Creek. I'm going to see if I can find a way across without getting wet. It's a pretty cold day today, in the low 40s, so it'd definitely be nice to keep the feet dry. Crossed on that log, nice and easy. The big question mark hanging over my head: how will that snow be? I'm about 4,000 feet of elevation gain and a couple hours of hard work from finding out. I'm rising up nicely this morning. Still got a long way to climb. We can start to see a little bit of the Sky Island effect, wherein out past the foothills of the Chiricahuas it is flat desert, steep, rugged landscape. Looks like there used to be a sign there. Maybe it got burned down at some point. Getting closer and closer to the snow. Still pretty hesitant on how it's going to turn out up there. Beautiful day, clear blue skies. Making my way up. The signs out here appear to be having a tough time. My first encounter of snow on the trail. Uh-oh. It looks passable so far, so we'll continue going. Made it through my first snowfield of the trip successfully. Second sizable snowfield. Snowfield after snowfield now. Well above 9,000 feet and hitting the snow as I feared. Finishing up the Mormon Ridge Trail, hopping on the Crest Trail. It's been snow for the last 3/4 of a mile. I put traction devices on, it would be impassable without them, but right now I'm making it. I lost the Crest Trail for a good half mile back there and made for very slow going through the mountainous terrain, but now I'm back on it. Hopefully can cruise towards camp. Another trail sign that has seen better days. Home sweet home. I've made it to the vicinity of what seems to be alternatively coined the Aspen Saddle or the Chiricahua Saddle, and I'm gonna go ahead and get camp set up. There are a couple springs around this area, but I'm probably just gonna utilize the snow from our water source tonight. The Chiricahua Mountains are the largest of Arizona's Sky Island ranges and the second highest, stretching 35 miles long and soaring to over 9,700 feet. The Chiricahuas tower 6,000 feet above the surrounding land. On this trip, I'm using the Chiricahua Mountains map by Green Trails Maps, supplemented by the free GPS-enabled U.S. Forest Service Visitor Map app.
Let's take a look at the map for day 1. I started at the end of Turkey Creek Road and walked the forest road to the Mormon Ridge Trail, then took the Mormon Ridge Trail up, eventually connecting with the Crest Trail, and took that across to Aspen Saddle where I set up. Day 1 was about 7.5 miles.
Day 1 of my backpack in the Chiricahuas has been an adventurous day, and really a tale of two halves. First part of the day, nice and smooth, climbing up Mormon Ridge, and then I hit the snow, and things got more challenging and more difficult, but I made it to my goal for the day, which was this saddle area to set up camp. One of the big blessings for me was that the snow was so hard that I was not breaking through and post holing, but the thing to keep in mind about that is as it continues to warm throughout the trip, that same snow may get soft and turn into post holing. So it's just tough to tell how the remainder of the days are going to look, but I'm here at camp now. I'm going to get some warm clothes on, get some dinner in me, and then settle in for a relaxing evening. That'll be the end of day 1. Good night. Good morning. Made it day 2 in the Chiricahuas. Had a calm, restful night last night. The moon was either a full moon or nearly full, and was just blasting the entire area with light. It was so bright I could see mountains off in the distance and everything. My original plan for this trip was to come up to this area, set up base camp, and then do some peak bagging over the next several days. Now the snow certainly has me wondering how many peaks are going to be accessible, but there's only one way to find out. Before that, my first mission of the day is to go find one of the springs in this area and gather some water, because this snow didn't really taste that good to me. So I'm going to finish up breakfast and then hike out on a search for water.
I could be losing my mind, but I'm like 90% sure that this big hole was not here last night. So some little animal got busy digging a burrow. My tent is at the top of the hill to the left. I think this little snowy patch here might be the official aspen saddle. There are a lot of aspens and it's a saddle. And then this up here to the right would be Aspen Peak. Here is the sign for Eagle Spring. So I'm guessing it's down in one of these rocks a little bit below the trail. Just about 20 feet down from the sign is Eagle Spring. As I gathered and processed my water, got to enjoy a nice view of Raspberry Peak, the prominent mountain on Raspberry Ridge, as it lords over Rucker Canyon. Making my way back towards camp, and this is the Crest Trail, a barely perceptible scar on the side of the mountain here. Enjoyed a nice lunch in the comfort of camp. Now I'm going to head the opposite way from Eagle Spring along the Crest Trail to see if I can check out Chiricahua Peak. Well, I pretty much immediately lost the Crest Trail through those patches of snow, but I'm following the Chiricahua Peak Trail, which leads to the same place, the top of Chiricahua Peak, which is just right up here. It's getting snowier and snowier. Well, this appears to be the highest point of the peak to me. So despite all the snow, I was still able to bag the tallest named point in the Chiricahua Mountains. The trails out here are quite difficult to follow. It's right there in front of me, very faint. Then it just runs through snow every 15 feet and disappears, and I just kind of walk through the woods for a little bit. I'm trying to kind of loop around the peak. I'm now on the north side and there's lots of snow, so I may have to turn around and retrace my steps. We'll see. Well, I gave it a good try through the snow, but it's just too much. It's not worth it. I'm going to turn around, go back the way I came, head back down the Chiricahua Peak Trail, returning towards camp. Beautiful views here from the north side of the peak. I've mostly been just walking through the woods as the trail is very tough to follow, but I'm back on the trail now. Home sweet home. Made it back to camp. I'm honestly super stoked that I got to hit Chiricahua, the highest point in the land. Hopefully that bodes well for the accessibility of the remaining days of my trip. Let's take a look at the map for day 2. I explored outward from Aspen Saddle, firstly down to Eagle Spring, retraced my steps, and then I went up to the top of Chiricahua Peak and retraced back to camp. Day 2 was about 4 miles. Day 2 of my backpacking trip in the Chiricahua Wilderness has been a great day. I didn't cover a ton of ground today, but I still accomplished several good things. I've now explored out from my base camp in every direction. I found and utilized my water source, and I made it to the top of the tallest peak in the range despite the snow. So all in all, a great day. I finished up dinner, the sun is setting, and I'm gonna get settled in here for the rest of the evening. That'll be the end of day 2. Good night.
Good morning. Made it day 3, my backpacking trip in the Chiricahuas. Had another calm night last night, very bright due to the moon once again. Lit up the sky. It was a little clearer, so there are a few stars out as well, but for the most part it was the moon dominating. My plan today is to follow the crest trail for as long as I can on a day hike. I'd like to make it to at least Fly's Peak. We will see what the snow allows for me. I'm getting some breakfast in me, and then it'll be time to hit the trail. My little buddy has been busy. He filled up his original hole here, built himself a new hole right beside it. He also built these 2 ceremonial mounds beside the fire pit, one here, one up there, so he's an industrious little fella. This is the intersection where I took the Chiricahua Peak Trail yesterday, but today I've got to try to follow the crest trail through the snow. Popping into a section of steady snow here. Right now, fortunately, the snow is hard. I'm not breaking through. Hopefully when I come back this way this afternoon, it'll be the same situation. At least one other person has come through this section of the crest trail. It looks like they had on snowshoes. As usual, the signs are having a tough time out here. This is the Junction Saddle. And out to the left, coming into view, is Chiricahua Peak herself. After a long snow-free patch, I found it again. And that was a long, tricky snowbank. At one point at the beginning, before I put my traction devices on, I plop, fell right on my butt. Walking through Cima Park, well, C-I-M-A Park, not sure exactly how it's pronounced, but about a mile past that knob to the left will be Fly's Peak. These poor trail signs out here. Nice and clear on this section of the crest trail, but there is obviously still a lot of snow in a lot of places up here in the Chiricahuas. Every time I say that the trail is clear, I get back to another patch of snow, so I'm just gonna stop saying it. There is quite a bit of big downfall across the crest trail. The trail crews are gonna have their work cut out for them this year. Something lost a few feathers through here. Dead ahead is Fly's Peak. Doesn't look too bad on the way up, but we'll see how it goes, huh? Expansive views out to the west from Round Park
at the base of Flies Peak. This looks to be the highest point that I can see, so I'm calling this the top of Flies Peak. I came up the pretty steep and hardy Flies Peak trail, and I'm going to try to follow that all the way down to the other side of the mountain to connect back with the Crest Trail, and then start to head back towards camp. I actually found the geological marker for Flies Peak. I'm finding myself in the exact same situation that I was on Chiricahua Peak yesterday. Trying to loop around the north side of the mountain is just snow, snow, snow. So once again, I'm going to abandon my ideas of looping around the peak, and I'm going to retrace my steps back down, heading south on the Flies Peak Trail. It looks much more intimidating heading south the way I came, looking out on all the north-facing slopes with the seas of snow. Looking down on Round Park, and in this snowy side slope was the tricky part of my traverse today. I didn't even catch this sign on the way in. Another fallen soldier. Back to my long, sketchy, slippery snow slope. Once I make it through this, hopefully without falling on my behind again, it'll be smooth sailing the rest of the way to camp. Ooh. And this snowy stretch is lasting a lot longer than I remembered coming across it the first time. Finished up with what should be my last bout of need for the traction devices on this day. And I could not make it across those slopes without them. They are mandatory right now. My car is somewhere down there at the bottom. Either at this canyon or the next one over. I'm not too sure. But I'll go find it in a couple days. I thought this was a stick at first, but it's a nearly foot-long turd hanging on for dear life. I took a surprisingly long detour with a ton of blowdown off the Crest Trail out to Anita Spring to gather my water for the evening. And here it is, just a little seep in the rock. Home sweet home. It's been absolutely perfect hiking weather the past 2 days. Highs in the 50s, mostly sunny, a light breeze from time to time. Let's take a look at the map for day 3. Starting at Aspen Saddle, I followed the Crest Trail around Chiricahua Peak, continued along to the Flies Peak Trail, which I then used to summit Flies Peak, returned, came back along the Crest Trail, came out to Anita Spring, steep down, steep back up, and then boom, back to Aspen Saddle. Day 3 was about 7 miles. Day 3 in the Coronado National Forest has been another great day. I got to hit my second out of 2 attempted peaks, added Flies to the list. As I started towards the end of my day's hike in the afternoon, the snow is definitely getting much softer. I was starting to break through and post hole a bit. I've got dinner in me and settling in for a relaxing evening. As long as nothing crazy happens, that'll be the end of day 3. Good night. Good morning. Made it to day 4 in the Chiricahuas. The moon was brilliantly bright again last night, and there are a few stars out, but mostly it was the moon who was making his presence known. Today is another attempt at peak bagging for me. I'm going to head towards Sentinel Peak. The tricky part is that I will be approaching Sentinel from the north, and I got lucky with Chiricahua Peak and with Flies Peak, and I was able to approach from the south. And when I tried to continue around to the north,
it was too snowy to continue. So I'm wondering how Sentinel is going to work out for me today, but I'm going to go do what I always do, go check it out, give it the old try, and make the best smart decision I can make based on the conditions. So I'm going to get some hiking clothes on, and it'll be time to hit the trail.
My buddy was busy again. He filled in his old hole to the left and built himself a new one right beside my tent. I actually saw him last night. He only comes out when I leave camp or when I'm laying in my tent for a while. And so I heard him rustling around, and I had a little bit of gear out here, and I thought maybe he was messing with it. So I pop out. Nah, he was just doing his whole thing. And then I just stood there for like 20-30 seconds, and you know, he's an impatient fella. He's got work to do, so he didn't hear me moving around. He popped his little head out, saw me, I saw him. He went right back in the hole real quick. But you know, it's cool to see the fella who's been hanging out with me for a couple days. Back on the crest trail today. You may be thinking, Lane, no matter what direction you head here on the crest trail, you would be correct. There are actually 4 crest trails in the Chiricahuas. Crest Trail 270A, B, C, and D. And they join together to form kind of an upside down Y or lowercase h through the heart of the mountains. And so basically whatever direction I go, I can go that way on the crest trail. This stretch of the crest trail affords great views of Raspberry Ridge looking down into Rucker Canyon. Eagle Spring. I'll make a pit stop here on my way back to gather water for the evening. One of these peaks on this ridge is Sentinel. Not sure exactly which one. It looks like my trail is gonna cut right on down this way and then start to come across the top of the crest. You know, there's obviously a bit of snow up there, but there's also a lot of clear. I am feeling more optimistic than I was this morning. Juniper Spring looks like a pretty tough place to try to gather water. Looking east, Snowshed Peak on the left, and the South Fork of Cave Creek Canyon on the right. This is my absolute favorite kind of hiking. Sheltered in the forest, but still got views. The best of both worlds. Looking down into the Cave Creek Canyon. This trail post has completely lost its sign, but I'm going to stay on the left to the crest trail. It's the Price Canyon Trail that's heading down to the right. Facing south, peering down Baker Canyon. Looking up at Sentinel Peak, it definitely appears that I'll be able to make it to the top. Another chapter in the book of trail signs in the Chiricahuas. For long stretches of the day, there really is not much to the crest trail. It's about 3 inches wide right here on the side of these different ridges. But it's taking me to Sentinel. There looks to be some old ruins up here, and there's even a little water in this catchment. Typical sign, laying down on the job. There's a ton of aspen growth up here on the top of Sentinel. I presume that, you know, it was once pretty clear and there was wide ranging views up here. You still get the views, you just gotta walk to a couple different viewpoints to get around the aspen growth. And there is a sign in these bushes to the left that says the lookout tower was here from 1930 to 1972. So that must be what these remains are from. Another view from the top looking east. Now coming around to the south, I should be really looking out into Mexico. Pretty cool. Very pretty day today. It's warming up once again. The temperatures are definitely into the 60s. Enjoyed the great viewpoints from the top of Sentinel. Now I'm retracing my steps, my snow-free steps, back to camp. Leaving Sentinel behind. Bye-bye. There's Snowshed Peak. When I came through this morning, I said one of these mountains in the front was probably Sentinel, but I think that's incorrect. I think right through that gap is the mountain that was before Sentinel, and Sentinel is kind of in the back. I just found this split open geode right along the trail. That's pretty neat. And then I found another one right beside it. Wonder how many of these little rocks out here are actually geodes. Wow. Dead ahead is my camp hill, and to the left is Chiricahua Peak. Home sweet home. What a beautiful snow-free day today was. Let's take a look at the map for day 4. Starting at Aspen Saddle, I hiked down past Eagle Spring, continuing along the Crest Trail, all the way to the top of Sentinel Peak, and then retraced my steps back along Crest to return to camp. Day 4 was about 10 miles.
Day 4, my backpacking adventure in the Chiricahua Mountains has been another great day, perhaps even the best day of the trip. My worries from this morning about the snow going up to Sentinel Peak were unfounded, and goes to show you that worry is always just a waste of mind energy. Beautiful day of hiking, no issues with the snow, the warmest day of the trip. Tonight's the last night of my adventure in the Chiricahuas, and it's also the last night of my back-to-back backpacking trips in Arizona, from the Grand Canyon to Saguaro National Park to Cave Creek, now to the Chiricahuas. I've got to see so much beauty in this great state, and there's definitely a big place in my heart for Arizona. I've got dinner in me. I'm going to settle in for the final evening. As long as nothing crazy happens, that'll be the end of day 4. Good night. Good morning. Made it to day 5 of my backpacking trip here in Arizona's Chiricahua Mountains. Final day of my trip. I'm going to hit hopefully 2 peaks on the way out, and we'll see how the snow looks. I always have it in the back of my mind that as I go to those highest elevations, I may have some challenges, but I've only got one way to go out today, and so I'm going to have to get through it no matter what. And we saw with Sentinel Peak yesterday that it was clear, so of course I'm hopeful for the best. Camp's packed up, and before we head out, let's take a quick look at the map. After that, it's time to hit the trail. Let's take a look at the map for day 5. Breaking camp at Aspen Saddle, I'll cut across the Crest Trail to the Chiricahua Saddle, head south to Raspberry Peak, go over to Monte Vista Peak, take the short spur to the top as conditions allow, come back down, and then finish off my trek along the Morse Canyon Trail down to the Turkey Creek Road where I'll find my car. Day 5 will be about 7.5 miles for a trip total of approximately 35 miles. First taste of snow this morning is a small manageable bite as I make my way toward Chiricahua Saddle. The Crest Trail D between Aspen Saddle and Chiricahua Saddle is my least favorite part of this entire area. It's impossible to follow, and I just keep going up and down these cliffs and rocks trying to find it, and it is nowhere to be seen. Between the blowdowns, snow patches, rock slides, I couldn't follow it on day 1, I can't follow it on day 5. I'm not one who's shy about just cutting across the countryside, but it's all rocks and boulders and steep slopes, so it would be nice to have a trail. I finally found a semblance of the trail again.
Now hopefully I can stay on this and not lose it. Smooth sailing. It took me an hour to do that 1 mile stretch of the crest trail, which is obviously not the pace I'm trying to set. But I'm now on Raspberry Ridge, which is cool because I've spent so much time looking at Raspberry Ridge on this trip. Right there, Mount Chiricahua. And kind of through this little cliffy area is where that annoying section of the crest trail is. I've got to be really careful traversing that snow patch. It is steep and has a precipitous drop off. There are 3 stretches tight like that, very steep, very snowy. Oh boy. Snow, snow, snow. Raspberry Peak is to the left. The trail goes around the side and I'm not gonna climb up through the snow to the top, so you'll forgive me for not reaching Raspberry. Down in there is my vehicle. I've still got quite a ways to go to reach it though. I'm out of the snow, perhaps for good, because the way to Monte Vista Peak looks pretty clear. You never know out here though. We're gonna find out soon enough. Well, I'm never saying that there's no more snow again. Another steep slope of snow. At this point, there should be no surprise in the condition of the trail signs. I'm going to take the short spur up to Monte Vista Lookout. What a bummer. It says visitors are requested not to climb the tower. Well, we'll just have to make do with the views from the front of the tower. Still pretty expansive. I'd say though, come on Coronado National Forest, let people climb the tower. It looks to be in good shape. Oh well, pretty day today. You don't have to take my word that the tower is in good condition. The FAA gave it 3 dots in the green. Another big snowy slope to traverse.
Yeah! Day 5 was similar to day 1 in that it was a tale of 2 halves. It took a little over 3 hours through the first 3.5 miles along the ridges and through the snow, and it took less than an hour and a half through the final 4 miles coming down the canyon. Definitely be willing to do some navigation when you come out here, but the beauty and the splendor of the area makes it totally worth it. This trip has pushed me outside my comfort zone in multiple areas. The snow, the navigation. I didn't see another human being for 5 days. I think that's the longest I've gone without seeing or talking to a person in my life. But going through these situations, while they may be painful or stressful in the moment, those are where growth occurs, when you come out of them successfully. And so I hope that next time that I hike through snow, I can feel confident and not be so worried about it. It's been a little over a month for me now in Arizona, and this is the first trip where it did not rain, so some things are sweet here in the Chiricahuas. Until next time, thanks for tuning into Lane's World. Goodbye. And I'm in the Chiricahua day 2 of my backpacking trip in the Chiricahua